Hi everyone, this is Mr Neel Raithatha, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for joining me in my latest video. This is of a patient who attended the clinic with severely blocked earwax in both ears. In fact, they attended accident emergency at the weekend because they suffered from a fall and they wondered whether the fall was, well, they weren't sure why they had the fall, and it was only when they arrived and their ears got, the history got taken and the ears got inspected that a possibility for their fall and imbalance was due to their ears being so severely blocked. The patient has had blocked earwax in the past. He reports and also suffered from a bit of dizziness and imbalance at that time. He was advised to use hydrogen peroxide drops, and after the first day doing so, the patient felt their symptoms were exacerbated and made much worse. Now, if you've been watching and following my channel and videos, you would know that I'm not a big fan of hydrogen peroxide drops for several reasons. Hydrogen peroxide drops are water-based, and water is actually bad for the ear. It's only until I became an audiologist that I became aware of that. I was completely blissfully unaware of that fact. But water is, I deem it as almost like the kryptonite of the ear. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is hydrogen peroxide drops is alkaline based, whereas your ear is slightly acidic in pH. And the acidity helps inhibit certain bacterial growth and also acts as an insect repeller, believe it or not. Therefore, when you're using alkaline drops in the ear, some people can develop an irritation and sometimes it can even lead to an infection. It's very rare for it to cause an infection, but it can cause some irritation and itchiness in the ear. But for me, the primary reason is hydrogen peroxide drops in particular turns the wax very mushy in consistency, making it very difficult to then suction and extract, either using a hook because the hook will just slice through it, or the Jobson horn because again it's just too stodgy, and you end up smearing the wax against the canal walls, a bit like when you're spreading butter on a slice of toast. And of course with forceps it's just going to cut into it. So what I've just done, I've just cleared the entrance now. This patient is from Asian descent, and the reason why I mentioned that, I'm Asian myself, is that, again, it's just anecdotal, but I do find that the Asian patients and clients, or in general ears, tend to have more hairs, more cilia at the entrance. And again, I'm not sure the historic or genetic reason as to why that is, but anecdotally I'm pretty sure there's a significant increase in the number of hairs found in Asian ears compared to other ethnicities. And the earwax generally just tends to be darker as well. Now, of course, the ear canal is going to be slightly darker in because of the skin tone, but I also find the earwax is darker. Now, earwax naturally oxidizes and gets darker over time as it matures. The longer it's in the ear, it will change from a lighter brown to a darker brown shade. But I feel, again, Asian earwax is the natural, as it's secreted, it's a naturally darker shade of brown. So slowly but surely bringing this forward, and it's fully lodged. It was a severe blockage, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. In fact, the patient wasn't able to hear my suction machine, which was right behind them to their right ear actually, and it's pretty loud. The suction machine itself, so that noise is not the noise the patient hears inside the ear. It's not as noisy as that inside the ear, although microsuction can be noisy in its own right. But they weren't able to hear it, and it was a bit of a shock to them once I removed the wax plug. They immediately said, "What's that noise?" And I had to explain it was the suction machine. They were quite shocked to once they realised how noisy it was. So I've just put some olive oil drops in there. What the olive oil does, it tends to bind this wax together. As I said, it's quite mushy. I've cleared the outer half of the wax out, and this wax that I'm dealing with now, I've actually brought that forwards. So this wax was originally a lot deeper in the ear. It's more medial, and we're slowly bringing it forwards. We've just detached it from the canal wall, so I've mobilised it. But just at the entrance, it's still quite stubborn. So I'm just thought, let me go in with a hook underneath. And I'm just rotating this hook now anti-clockwise, trying to embed it, but it wasn't embedding. So the St. Bart's ear hook has got, the tip is quite rounded, it's not sharp. Now, There are other instruments like a Cawthorn hook, which is a bit sharper, and you might have got a bit more purchase there. Now, you may have realised I don't generally use the Cawthorn hook, and part of that is it's not. I kind of find that I'm fine with the instruments I've got. It doesn't really add anything extra. I'm able to do everything I want to with the instruments I have. Very occasionally you may see me use it. But the main reason why is that when I'm training delegates as well, I want to ensure I train I wouldn't train delegates, inexperienced delegates, using the sharp metal instruments for obvious reasons. And so I want to train them in the way I'm performing the wax removal. And a lot of the delegates watch the videos, and as you can see, it's seldom that you need to use those sharp instruments. And I do recommend the delegates, once they're more experienced, they in certain instances where it's absolutely necessary to use the sharper, because the Cawthorn hook, the tip is very, very sharp. So I managed to extract this, medial wax, eardrum's nice and healthy, and this is the patient's right in. It's this here they put more hydrogen peroxide drops. You can see it's a lot more mushy, a lot more stodgy. It's more like a swamp in there. I'm just trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's just very wet and sticky and stodgy, and a lot more skin on this side, a lot more keratin. So those bits I removed there was actually dead skin. You can tell by the appearance it slightly had a ribbon effect. I'm just going to clean the lens there. I need to just want to avoid going through. Now, sometimes when you enter the ear, there's so much wax around the entrance, and it can smear against the tip of the endoscope, causing blurriness. If that was the case, I normally clear the entrance first, but quite often I leave the entrance near the end, because as you're moving the wax out of the ear, it's going to smear that entrance anyway. So instead of doing it twice, it's best just doing it the once. So I typically like to bring the wax out, unless it's obscuring the view and I need to clear the entrance so I can see, or if it keeps, as I said, smearing the lens. But otherwise, if possible, you can see there's a bit there. I'm just going to leave that right to the end. So I've just put a lot of olive oil in here just to change the consistency again. And I'm suctioning whilst the oil's in the ear. That's why occasionally it gets blurry, because I'm suctioning the oil as well. And you imagine the light can refract differently through oil as it does with water compared to air. Just at the entrance, but it's just lodged here now. So we've got half the wax plug out, but this more medial bit, I've brought it forwards, but it's just trapped at the entrance. The entrance of the ear was a bit more narrow and slit. So I'm going to use an ear hook in a moment, which you'll see. Well, I'm pretty sure I will in a moment. So it's difficult using any other instruments. Forceps, of course, it's just too mushy. It's just going to cut through it. A Jobson horn, initially I couldn't really use it because the wax plug was too deep in. And then to glide that around the wax, in and behind, you're going to be making contact with the eardrum potentially, and definitely against the canal wall, which would be sensitive for the patient. A hook is a lot more manoeuvrable. It's thinner, it's less surface area. We can better glide it in nooks and crannies without it being uncomfortable for the patient. So I'm just trying to roll this forward. Sometimes with a plug like this, if you roll it, it can actually roll out like a football. And it has come out a bit. You can see at the top, I'm just bringing it down. But the key bit now is I feel safe to insert a hook right behind this now, because I know I've brought it forwards enough. And very unlikely that I'm going to make contact with the eardrum or the bony part of the ear canal now. So there's a nice gap at the top as well. So I'm just gliding the hook in horizontally. I rotate it clockwise, 90 degrees. I'm embedding the wax, and it comes out in 2 chunks, I think. So this is chunk number 1. And I can go a bit further now because I've got more of a view. I'm just embedding it in the core, slowly but surely bringing it out. And just trying to really squeeze it through the entrance. And this remaining bit, I've decided to use the suction probe because it's because I did realise that the wax plug still extends quite deep. So it came out a lot easier, this last bit with the suction. So now I'm going to mop up near the entrance. and that's the eardrum. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Sorry I didn't have an after image of all the still photos of the wax. It's very busy in clinic when I saw this patient, and we just wanted to get the procedure done and wiped down, ready for the next one. Take care, remember to be nice and be kind. Bye.